How are you?
I'm doing so well, Simon. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, look, I'm extremely excited. This is going to be one hell of a transformative conversation. I feel like we've both lived a very parallel life, so I can imagine this is going to be absolutely value driven.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Now, something which I really want to get from you. Now, I see everything that you're doing at the minute, and I'm huge on finding out, and we always do this in all of our interviews, of what is actually the driving force behind a person. So for you, what is the story of Amber Sears? How did you become the most epic version of yourself, and how have you created the most epic version of your life? What's the story behind you?
Wow. Yeah. So I always say that my story, the root of what I do, all stems from my passion for dance. Actually, so my parents put me in dance when I was 3 years old, and I was a competitive dancer all the way growing up until I hit college years, and then I went on to dance professionally in San Francisco for 8 years. And so dance was really the driving force behind why I did everything, like why I learned all the different things I learned over the years in terms of self-care and nutrition and peak performance techniques like Pilates and yoga and meditation and breath work. I was really on this massive hunt for what it would take for me to be the best dancer. I really wanted to perform at my best in every way, shape, or form, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I knew that all those different tools could really help me. So I ended up finding those tools along the way as I was getting injured a lot. I found Pilates and yoga, and I found myofascial release, and then I also found nutrition at a really young age. So I got into kind of Western sports nutrition, I would call it, like in my teens, and then dove into Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine and plant-based eating. And then I dove into raw foods for 8 years as well. So I was a raw foodist for 8 years. So I really was experimenting with, okay, what's going to work best for my body, my unique body. And so dance was that driving force. And really it was just this opportunity. For me, dance is my greatest connection to what I call source energy, to my heart, my soul. I feel that dance is very much the language of the soul. And so it was this opportunity for me to really live out my dance dreams, but really just express myself fully in every way. That's what dance really means to me. And but then as I got older, I realized, obviously this dance career cannot last forever, and I'm really getting burned out. So in my dancing years in San Francisco, I went through Pilates certification, yoga certification, nutrition. I went through all these different certifications to be able to teach and coach alongside my dance career. So basically, I built my business initially right out of college. I launched my website, epicself.com, as a health and wellness blog. And so I started as a blogger, really, actually, in the online space. Yeah. And that was really interesting. That was a whole, new world, and really diving into this whole idea of digital nomad. What does that mean?
So you were one of the first to the plate with it then, weren't you? If it was around that time.
I was, this was about 12 years ago. So I jumped in and I started making blogs. Yeah. And I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week and and I was reading all these travel hacking blogs and digital nomad blogs. And this was like really when digital nomad, that word, became a thing, and everybody was diving in, right, trying to figure out how to make this happen. But the technology was still really limited, right, or at least in my scope of understanding, it was limited. And so after many years of teaching, I was teaching in San Francisco for 8 years. So Pilates, yoga, nutrition, I had private client base, and I was really busy outside of my dance career. Dance did not pay the bills. It was something I did really as a passion because it wasn't a moneymaker at all, even though my heart was in it 1,000%. And so I had this booming business, but I was also found myself really trapped in the city. I couldn't leave my clients. It was very much, I was tethered to these 4 different studios I taught for. And I really wanted an online business, completely online, so I could be free to travel and roam and do all the things.
So am I correct in saying you found yourself in kind of like a time prison? You were quite time locked? So even though the mission was to help all the people in the world, it kind of became a double-edged sword, so to speak.
Yeah, because, to exist in San Francisco, it's so expensive to live there. I was hustling around the clock. Like I had 8 clients a day, 6 days a week, and I was getting by and I was making money and I was able to save money to be able to travel and things like that. But it was still a hustle. And I said, there's got to be a better way. This hourly based pay thing I'm doing is not working at all for me. Once I hit this certain threshold of really wanting a better lifestyle for myself. But what was really cool about like my years in San Francisco is that I actually did a lot of really cool things. I built up a meetup group of about 2,600 members of people who were all into organic health. And so, and this was really random of me, but I really wanted to start these events where I could bring together people who were into organic plant-based cuisine and the yogis and Pilates mavens of the world. Like I wanted to bring everybody together to learn from each other. For whatever reason, I thought that was a great idea. And so I started creating these like potlucks. I think back to it and I'm like, wow, I was like really like going for it. But I was, so I did these free events every month and then I would do paid events as well. And so this group grew massively. And a lot of it was because I didn't have community. Like I was really seeking community. I really wanted like-minded, like-hearted people that I could hang out with because I didn't have those people in my life in San Francisco. So I did that. And that's where I started like the workshop weekend events. And then I started really wanting to do retreats because, again, this travel bug had bit me at a young age. And I really wanted to travel and produce retreats that were going to be transformative for people in beautiful destinations that I really wanted to travel to. And so then I was trying to figure out, well, how do I do that? And so I was initially reaching out to certain retreat companies and trying to figure out like how I could get in as an instructor, a teacher on one of their retreats. And then I realized, I just need to create my own thing, because that's probably going to be the most effective thing for me to do with my client base. And, I could collaborate and stuff like that. So I threw my first retreat in Mexico. This was 10 years ago now. And it was great. We broke even, which was good at the time. And
it's always the case with the first one, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I was just so happy to have 8 people, it was really a hustle. But so, just kind of piecing all these things together and seeing what would really work for me in terms of a lifestyle. And also around this time, Skype became something. And I was like, cool, now I can do online coaching. This is so great. Like now I can teach Pilates and yoga and nutrition online to an international audience. And so then I was like creating ebooks and e-courses and doing Skype coaching and really just kind of exploring, right? And then I decided, you know what, I'm done with this lifestyle in San Francisco. I really need to get out of the country and live in a different culture because I really, really craved that. I felt really, even though I was doing a lot of teaching abroad already, I was teaching in Mexico once a month at this destination spa called Rancho La Puerta, which is right in Baja, California, a beautiful destination spa. I was already doing a lot out of the country. So I was like, you know what, I can't handle this anymore. So I decided to move to Costa Rica. And this was after a 2-week experience where I was teaching at a yoga, music, dance festival in Costa Rica called Envision Festival. And I fell in love with Costa Rica, the whole way of life down there. And so I closed all my business in Costa Rica and decided I was going to open a wellness center.
Was this an immediate close? Was this kind of like, this is where I'm going now, I'm out? Or
it was
no, it was
like
kind of approach.
It was like a 4-month transition where I literally spent 2 weeks in Costa Rica. I went back to San Francisco and I said, look, this is what my soul is missing. My soul is missing this deep connection to nature. The culture in Costa Rica is very community oriented. I really wanted tribe, like-minded, like-hearted tribe. And I really just felt so called there. I can't explain it other than my spirit was very called there. It was a very big intuitive hit. So I literally overnight closed my business, said, I'm out, I'm closing this all down. I love you all so much, but I need to go to Costa Rica. So I opened up a wellness center and I did that for about a year. And I realized really quickly that, oh my gosh, I have created the same cage around myself. I'm literally working even more than I was working in San Francisco, running a brick and mortar space, which by the way, I didn't want a brick and mortar space because I really wanted to be a digital nomad, right? Like deep down, like that was so after a year, I closed the doors in the studio which was hard for me because that was a big potential dream for me as well. Closed the doors on the studio and said, I'm going 100% online. So that's when I went to just completely online coaching, retreats, and teacher training programs so that I could really pick and choose when I had my retreats and trainings that suited my overall schedule and travel plans. Yeah. So it was kind of how can I create the best lifestyle that way. So I've been doing that for 5.5 years now. And now things have really shifted into business coaching. So instead of doing a lot of health and wellness coaching, which is what I was doing for the last, decade, I've been doing a lot more business coaching simply because I have a lot of people coming to me now saying, how did you build this? I want to do something similar. So yeah, that's kind of brings us up to today.
Amazing. I have so much I want to kind of delve into that, which I really feel we can extract quite a lot of value out. But there's a couple of key words which you kept bringing up, and I really kind of want to drive these home because this has been something that has cropped up in a lot of the interviews we've had, a lot of the guests, and it's also something I can really kind of like grasp onto and like drive home in my own story, is connecting with purpose. I really think that this is, Now, I really feel that a lot of our audience would benefit from kind of getting a bit of a grasp of maybe hearing your story on this. Now, I know a lot of the time when it comes down to coaching or people who have kind of stepped forwards to help people there's usually been a period of their life when maybe they were disconnected from purpose or they'd kind of become conditioned away from it. So I'd love to know from you, how's this story of purpose with you, and how did you go about kind of like finding it, rekindling it, and then slingshotting yourself forwards to live it?
Wow. Yeah. So I would say my quest for purpose started when I was like 22. And this is really when I was having this identity crisis around dance. I realized that, okay, just graduated college. I don't know if this is going to be a full-time professional thing I can do and make actual money doing it. And I was dealing with a breakup at the time. So I was like, I need to go find myself. I need to figure out what is deeper for me beyond what I've grown up in. What I've grown up in is this really hyper-disciplined world where I was expected to perform at my A game 24/7, and really bring it and have this thick shell. And I was really conditioned in this way and really needing to break free of the culture I grew up in, the discipline I grew up in. And so I sold everything I owned at age 22 and put everything I could into 2 backpacks and went backpacking by myself for about a year. And this was one of those things where I bought a one-way ticket. And I was like, I'm going to find myself, Mom and Dad. And they were terrified for me. They were like, I was the first in the family to really leave the country in that way and do a solo trip. And also I was like their baby girl. So they were really nervous for me, right? But I went out and I was just really trying to figure out what would happen if I didn't have the cultural programming that I grew up in. What if I didn't have the discipline? So this was a period of time where I was really experimenting with what would it feel like to eat like a normal person? I'd grown up in a very disciplined way of eating, specifically as a dancer. You need to eat a certain way, look a certain way, perform a certain way, right? And so I was like, what happens if I let go of all this stuff? Who am I then? If I don't have dance, if I'm not teaching Pilates, if I don't eat this way, if I don't look this way,
Can I ask on that? Because I got to a high level gymnast period, and I can completely, like national, but I can get what you're saying here. And did those patterns become quite negative with regards to like the things that you were doing in day-to-day life, like eating patterns and stuff like that? Did they then start to become more of an enemy than a success tool? Well, they were a success tool when I was in them, but I was at like a burnout mode, right? Like I'd hit my wall before I left San Francisco. I'd hit my wall of like this discipline. There's got to be something outside of this identity I have for myself. Like I was hitting that burnout point, and that's why I decided I was going to just go and do this, right? So then during this experimentation phase, I let go of all that discipline, and let me tell you, Simon, I was miserable. I was miserable because, of course, like a lot of these things that I had grown up in, they also make me really happy. Eating clean makes me feel really good, and dancing every day makes me feel really good. So even though it was something that I felt like had become a cage for me, it was actually also really serving my highest good and it's making me feel good. So during this 3-month period where I stopped eating well and stopped working out and I was like, what's it like to be normal? That's when I was really depressed, honestly. And I went through a really deep depression of figuring out, what do I really want? Why am I really here? And I was just wandering around and checking off little kind of bucket list items, like diving the Great Barrier Reef and doing some really cool, like sightseeing stuff. And I'm like, there's got to be more to life than this. This is not fulfilling to me. This is not purposeful to me. So I really hit the exact polar opposite of what I wanted. I hit like having no purpose and feeling meaningless and wandering around the world without really helping anything or doing anything that's bigger than myself, serving something bigger than myself. Exactly. And so when I moved back to San Francisco after a year of doing this, I realized, okay,
I'm depressed right now. I've not found my purpose, but what I have found is what I know is not what I want. And so I went back to San Francisco. I got back into the things that I was doing, but I decided that I wanted it to be for me. It was going to be the way I wanted it to be, not the way that my family wanted it to be, not the way that my choreographers wanted it to be. I was going to do it the way that I wanted to do it for me. And so that's when I really revamped my whole lifestyle. So I was still dancing. I was still teaching Pilates. I was still doing all the things that I had done previously, but it was just in a new way. It was really in a new structure and in a way that really served me versus serving external validation from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just gonna go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Simon.
No, I was just gonna say I can completely relate with this. The whole part of that. Would you say like the majority of it was when it came down to like the identity and obviously the mission that or the path that you'd place yourself on? Do you think a lot of that was caused from like possibly letting go of who you were? So you let go of everything, and does that make sense? Burnt the bridges on an old identity and tried to jump or find for something new and like grasping at things.
Yeah, and I think, when people ask me all the time, how did you find your purpose? How do I find my purpose? It's through experimentation. It's through trying all these different things and seeing what really resonates with you and what you don't want to do, right? So much of my experimentation was figuring out what I don't want to be doing. It was realizing, wow, I really don't want this digital nomad lifestyle I thought I did, where I'm just wandering around and traveling. Like, that doesn't feel purposeful to me. So, I had to find, same thing with the studio in Costa Rica. I had to do it to realize, ooh, this sounded like a good idea on paper, but it's really not what I want to be doing in this way, I've taken so many big leaps in my life. Costa Rica was a big one. Australia was a big one, that backpacking trip, where I just jumped and I was like, I'm going to figure it out on the way down. And that's when the magic happens. That's when you realize what you don't want and what you do want, in my opinion. And that's when you find out really lights your soul up. And for me, how I found my purpose was following what excites me, following what my heart is really calling me to do, and really getting courageous enough to sit and listen to what my soul wants. And that's what Costa Rica was for me, this huge jump into the unknown to really just follow what my soul was telling me to do. This big intuitive hit of like, girl, you need to listen. There is something here for you. If this place feels more like home than where you come from, you need to listen to that. And so that's when I jumped in and was like, I don't know why I'm in Costa Rica right now. It's beautiful. I love it here, but I'm just being called here. And then 6 months into it, I figured out why. Like, my deepest purpose is there in the jungle, working in shamanism and like really, really reconnecting people to the planet and to themselves through the work I do down there. So it was a huge awakening, let's say. Mm-hmm.
The thing that I love about that is when you this could be really powerful again for our audience, but we seem to be in a world now where everyone's just absolutely shit scared of taking action. But it's only through taking the action and trying where you can actually get the core data, or you can actually start to see where the gold lands to then go and, do you know what? That worked for me. I want more of that in my life. This didn't feel too great. Yeah. So it really is a case of just taking a bet on yourself, taking a risk, leaning into action. Absolutely. And also like immersing in different cultures, right? So I know you can relate with this. Traveling has been so expansive for me. My mind, my heart, my soul, like just like really diving into other cultures and seeing things from their perspective. I always, if you're trying to find purpose and like break out of your old patterns and your old mindset and behaviors, traveling is a really great pattern interrupt for that, to really give you some different perspective. When we leave the United States, where I'm from, and you go to a second or third world country and you realize that a large portion of the planet lives this way, it's a wake-up call. It's like, you need to be grateful, absolutely grateful for every single thing you have and what you were born into, but like, if you never leave the States, you have no idea that that's what's happening, right? And there's a lot of people who live their whole lives that way. So perspective is really huge. And for me, it was really eye-opening. Yeah. I love Joe Dispenza's way of looking at it. And he says, you can't read the label when you're inside the jar.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
You could steal that from me. But
that's amazing.
The thing that I love about it when it comes down to culture is I can totally relate with that. And I'd love to know from you, what was the culture is there a certain country or culture that really made you kind of like change the way that you viewed things? Because I know you do a lot in South America. And for me, it was Peru. Peru was the one that really was like,
Yeah.
Maybe things aren't that bad.
Absolutely. So, my first big shift was when I went to Asia, Southeast Asia. This was when I did backpacking when I was 18 years old for a month in Thailand. And this really changed my perspective at a young age of the Western culture isn't everything. And actually, I resonate a lot more with Eastern culture. I really felt
same.
like, wow, I should have been born here. Like, this makes so much more sense to me. The religious philosophies, the lifestyle, like just the way that they see the world is beautiful. So loved that. But then when I got older, I ended up going a lot to Mexico and spent a lot of time in Mexico, actually at this destination spa. Fell in love with Mexico, traveled all through Mexico. When I moved to Costa Rica, that was when I was fully immersed in Central American culture. And I fell madly in love with the Costa Rican people. They're super friendly, super kind. Just their value system is incredible. They really value community over everything else. They don't have much, let's say, material-wise. Even though, like, Costa Rica is the wealthiest Central American country, they're not about material possessions. They're about connection to people and nature. And that was beautiful for me to experience coming from the U.S. And then Peru, of course. When I first went to Peru, I'll never forget flying into the Amazon and crying at the beauty of the rainforest. It's just breathtaking. And then being in the Andes and the Sacred Valley, talk about a magical vortex.
Did you do Sakantai? Culture. Is that where you went? If that was the route, Sakantai Pass?
No, what is that? Is that a pass
it's one of the,
in the Sacred Valley?
Yeah, it's one of the Inca trails.
Oh, so wow. I was going to say, I've actually... No, I've never hiked one of the Incan trails. Like, besides doing just the standard Machu Picchu trails, I've not done the Incan trail. But I obviously have seen a lot of people doing it. Did you do it, Simon?
Yeah, that was the trip that changed my life. It was incredible. We got to go live on coffee farms, farm avocados. Do you know what I mean? And you sat there with nothing, no signal, like nothing. But you're just having the best time with the happiest people. And it's a complete game changer.
Right?
Exactly.
Completely. Oh, exactly. It's just, I know, Peruvian culture, for me, it's how these traditions are held, right? Over thousands of years, they're still embodied and practiced. It's so beautiful. The clothing, the way of life. Like, I love more than anything to bring people from other countries, from like more modern Western cultures, and bringing them to these ancient places where they still practice so many of these traditions, and just letting them, their eyes just go super wide and get really sparkly and go, oh my gosh. I'm like, I know, how surreal is this? It's like we're in a different world. We are, because we are. It's like a completely different reality. Mm-hmm.
But you feel it, don't you? It's a really odd experience. It's like you get goosebumps like when you see something just like, this is beyond like belief.
Totally.
Yeah. So, Amber, I just want to backtrack a little bit, because this is a word that I think has come up about 5 times in the past 30 minutes of what we just spoke about, is community. Now, this is something that's not actually been brought up on the show, and I really kind of want to jump in with this, because I think this is a big value for you as well, given especially with what you're doing. There's a lot of people at the minute whose community and the environments are not set up for who they are, their soul's purpose, what they want to do in life. Right. Have you got any like tips, advice, or anything like that, or anything from your own story which can kind of help people become more aware of what's working for them and what's not? Or is there anything that you've had in your own journey that can kind of throw out there for this?
Absolutely. Something I've had to learn the hard way, and I think I learned a lot of this when I was younger, traveling a lot, was boundaries. I really had to learn energetic boundaries with who I let into my sphere. So at an early age, like I quit drinking when I was 21. I didn't want to be in the party scene. I had to make some pretty strong decisions about what I wanted to do in my life with the people around me based on where my goals were and what my dream was. At the time it was dancing. I wanted to be the best dancer ever. So I quit drinking so I could be the best dancer. And that included, I needed to basically not hang out with my party friends, because I had a lot of party friends at that time. And so, there was a big switch in me. And as I was developing, it was like, okay, these friends, unfortunately, I love you guys, but I have to like shed you, because it's no longer serving me to hang out in this energy and to be influenced by you guys, because definitely we become who we spend our time with. Absolutely. 1,000%. Like, how many people have told you that? Like 1,000 people. So
you get guilted as well, don't you? Like, if you try not to drink.
Right. If you're not drinking, if you're not like fitting in, there's always pressure, right? And there are still a lot of friends who will respect you no matter what you do and want to be friends with you no matter what you do. But at the time, I had some pretty shallow friends, and it was really just about the partying scene. We didn't connect in a deeper way beyond that. And so when I stopped drinking, I was like, well, you're not fun anymore. We're not going to hang out with you anymore. All right, cool. Like, I'm out, because this obviously isn't where I'm going either. And so along the journey, like, that's why I created the community in San Francisco, because I didn't have community. I had a hard time finding community that really resonated with where I was at. I was a raw foodist, a yogi, a meditator. I didn't drink. I didn't party. I didn't do drugs. Like, I was very weird for my age at that time in San Francisco. And so that's when I decided to build the community. So I would say, if you're in a place where you're having a hard time finding like-minded, like-hearted people that you can really go deep with and have deep, authentic connections with, that you become that leader in your community to build a community that will really be that for the people. Because there are people in your town, in your city, who are like you, but they just don't have a central hub to go to really connect. And so this is why I started doing these free events, is I really just wanted to bring people together around food, around fitness, around health, and just like have cool conversations and just hang out, right?
Yeah.
So that's one tip. But also, it's this willingness to let go of old friendships and toxic relationships. So I've shared, I've had to be like very much like an X-Acto knife with who I let into my space based on my time, space, and energy. My time, space, and energy is very, very valuable to me. And if I'm with someone who's draining me energetically, meaning that like when I leave their presence, I feel drained because they've been taking from me, like a kind of an energy vampire, I call them, with a lot of drama, a lot of toxicity, a lot of negativity, right? A lot of complaining, that sort of person. I can't even stand those types of people. It's very hard for me to be around those types of people because I believe in being super grateful and humble and excited about life and passionate about life. And so I can't really hang with that. Nor do I think it's a good influence on me. So because of that, it's this willingness to have the hard conversations and spend less time with that person, or completely cut them out if that's what it takes, But what I want to share is that where you're headed is so much more important than these relationships that you think are important right now. If they're toxic relationships, where you're headed is so much more important to the world, to the collective of humanity, to like where we're headed, that it's time to let go of those things if you're having those doubts. So one of those things, one of the things I teach in my work is how to do that, right? Graciously. And because it can be hard, especially if you've got really toxic family members or people around you that like you feel like you need to keep them in your life, but they are extremely toxic to you and they're weighing you down. They're preventing you from actually pursuing your dreams because they just doubt you and put you down and, basically try to dim your light all the time. And you need to be around people who are going to encourage you and empower you and inspire you, because this is a hard journey. It's a hard journey to fulfill your soul's mission and to do all the things, to build the business, to live the lifestyle. It's hard. It's going to take focus. And if you've got people around you telling you you can't do it, man, those little things get in your ears over time, So, that's what I would say in terms of tips. And I think in general, it's just really picking and choosing who you spend your time with and putting yourself in situations where you're going to meet those people, whether that's going to a farmer's market, going to a yoga studio, going to community events, getting yourself out into the community, because chances are there's some really cool events near you that have those people there, but you're just not putting yourself out there to actually meet those people.
Definitely. I think there's two core things that I'd like to throw into that. And I think number one is like when you start doing the things that you love, you will connect with people who have got like values, like interests. And I think that's one of the biggest things is, are you in chase of the things that you love to find those people? I think that's the same in relationships as well. Do you know people like, there's no one out there. And I'm like, yeah, but you're kind of doing the same things in the same places with the same people. Anyway. Off topic, but then the second part of that,
I'm totally agree.
But then the second part of that is if the community or if the culture or the environment that it's not serving you, and I think this would be really great to get from you because I know now you're doing a lot of business coaching as well. A lot of the time those circles can make you feel shame-riddled. They can infect you with guilt, and that always leads down a path of self-destruct. Now, is that something that you see a lot with people who are maybe kind of in those phases of there's change in my life, I know there's something within me, a voice, a message, a business, a dream, or a vision, and they're in the kind of like processes of stepping forward and going after it? Do you find a lot of people have kind of got those like barriers or limiting beliefs or narratives at that point when it's at the beginning steps?
1,000%. And this is why it's such a big and challenging leap, because it's a completely different mindset you have to have as a business owner.
Yeah.
than you do as an employee. It's night and day difference. What you have to be willing to do, courageously put yourself out there, speak about what you do, sell what you do, market to people through social media, put yourself on camera, do all the pictures, do all the writing. Like it is a big endeavor. And you've got to have so much passion behind that to be able to really do it well. To really succeed in this, you have to have so much passion to help people, to really change people's lives, if that's what you're doing. So yes, the most challenging part is the limiting beliefs. It's the people around you, telling you, what are you doing? You're crazy. Why are you leaving your stable job that's paying you, 6 figures to do this passion project? And it's like, because your soul's calling you there. And you don't have a choice. You're sitting in like a pool of suffering over here in that 9-to-5 job that you hate, just to appease other people around you, instead of pursuing what really lights your heart up and really going all in, 2 feet, jumping all the way in and risking everything. But I strongly believe when you do that, that's when the magic happens. That's when the universe is like, all right, baby, you want this? Here we go. Let's go. And it starts bringing in all of the support, whether it's friends, it's financial, flow, it's connections you need, right? When you start talking about the things that lights your heart up and the things that you're really here to do on a deep soul level, that's when the universe comes in to provide. In my experience with all my coaching clients, with myself included, it's about trust. It's about trusting and jumping. And when you do that, oh my gosh, and you surrender this old lifestyle, this old identity, right? When you're willing to let that go, the hardest part is letting that go, because that's a stable piece for most people, really stable. But oftentimes they're suffering in it, which is the suffering has gotten bad enough that they're willing to take a big leap. But it's that trust in self. And so that inner confidence has to be built. So that's why the root of so much of what I do is self-love and empowerment, because without that self-confidence from the inside out, there's no way you're gonna be able to go out there and present yourself confidently to future clients at all, and so you got to do that through action though. So a lot of people think, well, I'm just gonna wait until I get confident. I'm just gonna sit here and meditate and write and put my little thoughts down on my website and do this.
I'm gonna journal.
No. I'm gonna journal. I'm gonna manifest, right? I hear this all the time. I'm gonna manifest. Okay,
no,
but part of manifestation is doing. You've got to do. So I'm very action oriented. All of my coaching is like, we're gonna do a lot, and you're gonna push your edges a lot with me. We're gonna face our fears consistently, because that's the only way you're gonna grow and build that inner confidence. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that's like the common misconception with this stuff, isn't it? It's like as soon as you start doing something, it's all going to be yoga mats, journaling and all this. It's like, no, this shit's hard. Like you're going to get pushed off some cliffs, lose yourself, lose your friends, go broke for a while, but it'll work out. But if I flip that back to what we were saying before, it all comes back to that initial spark of belief. And I think as soon as I think you'll be able to relate to this as well, given the language that you're using. As soon as that spark of belief's been given, you then start to speak it. When you speak it, you can then start to feel it as well. And there's a moment, and I'd love to know, this is something that's really shown up for me, and I think it might be similar to you, given what we're both speaking about, but where you kind of feel it's already happened before it's happened. Like you believe in it so much, it's already at the core of you. The next part of it is just closing the gap.
Absolutely. And oftentimes you don't know how it's going to happen. You're just in the full trust of, okay, I'm just going to keep doing the things I need to do to make it happen. But knowing that I also don't know ultimately how this is all going to play out, how it's going to actually come to fruition. There's so many examples of my life where when I took those big leaps, it was because I felt like I had the universe supporting me. It was really like, there's no other way to describe it besides flow, where I made a decision. I was committed to doing this thing. So to give an example, like with Costa Rica, I went back to San Francisco from Costa Rica. I started telling all my clients about how much I loved Costa Rica, how much I couldn't wait to go back there and lead a retreat or do a workshop or do something. I didn't know what it was yet. And I started talking about it. Sure enough, one of my clients who I was working with online, actually, he reached out to me after we had this conversation about Costa Rica. And he's like, you know what? I've been really wanting to open up some sort of wellness center down in Costa Rica, or, a retreat center. I'm just curious, what is your dream down there? And he's like, what would you build if you could build anything? And I said, I'd probably do a retreat center or like a wellness center. I wouldn't want to have like accommodation, and probably just like a wellness center where people could come and immerse and learn. Yeah. And he said, well, let's build it. And I said, what? Like I was in full shock. Simon. Like, wait, what?
So he'd front the capital?
He initially, what was that?
Would he front the capital? Would he invest?
So yeah, he was going to invest, right? So his whole, I didn't know, Tim, if I thought you said, is it from the capital? Yeah, so he was like, he's like, no, I'm serious, Amber. Like, I really want it. And I was like, you're kidding me, right? And so we started pulling together all the plans. I dove into the business plan. And then last minute, final hour, I just told all my clients in San Francisco, I'm leaving San Francisco to open up my dream wellness center with my new investor in Costa Rica. He sends me a one-line email saying, sorry, Amber, I can't invest at this time due to family affairs. He was going through a divorce at the time, blah, 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 really intense. I said, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I literally just closed all my business in San Francisco, and I'm literally have stuff on the cargo ship going to Costa Rica right now. I'm going to sign a lease in Costa Rica on this wellness center, and you're telling me you're pulling out right now? So I just went hustle mode. Who do I know who would be interested in investing in this dream?
Switch.
It was inside. I was like, okay, it's on, Amber. You've got literally T-minus 4 weeks to get to Costa Rica and get an investor to invest in this dream. How are you going to do this? So I start talking to everybody, right? Putting it all out there. This is my business model. This is what I'm doing. This is a time-sensitive matter, guys. I have 4 weeks, like the whole thing. Sure enough, one of my friends from my meetup group in San Francisco, the free one that I created, right?
Yeah.
One of my friends steps forward who I'd been hanging out with a lot. I had no idea he was a financial expert and was like an investor in small businesses. I had no idea. So he's like, Amber, yeah, of course. Like, let's do it. I was floored. The investment ended up being double what I initially asked for, and it ended up being with a much better partner in general. And I just, again, this is a prime example of I was willing to do whatever it took to make this dream happen. And I was committed and focused and driven. It was all I talked about. And when you're that focused, that's when magic happens. And so that was a prime example. So I landed in Costa Rica on the day I was supposed to. All of my equipment that I bought for the studio was there that same day. I signed the lease on the studio, and I was ready to go. But it was wow. It was in me. I said, Amber, how bad do you want this? How bad do you want this? What are you willing to do?
It's like divine intervention, really, isn't it? It really is.
It felt that way. It felt that way because it ended up being a better situation, right? Where I was given what felt like 2 golden tickets. The first one fell out. The second one ended up being twice as good. And that was the one the universe had planned for me. In my belief system, right? That's what I believe, is that the universe is like, nope, this first one's not right for you because the second one's going to be better. But how bad do you want it, Amber?
I love the analogy of this. Like, I always find this, like, when you kind of know what you want to do, you kind of get a bit of a test. So something will happen to rock the boat a little bit. It's like, are you really committed to this? Are you going to move forwards? Or are you just going to go and sit down and go back to what you know is comfortable? And you just see it happen with so many things like this with you. It was, you got clarity, you were in the place of action, and you could have just sat down quite simply. But no, you flip the switch, you spark the phoenix, and you just slingshotted forwards with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's those make or break moments that really define us, right? How are we going to cope with the challenges? This is the Entrepreneurship 101. How are we going to cope with the challenges that come up? Because they're going to keep coming up, and they're going to get bigger, and there's going to be more responsibility and more weight on your back as you go. And how are you going to cope? And what are you going to do when things get really tough? Are you going to jump up and just face it and do whatever it takes? Or are you going to sit back and let what could be just like dissipate, that dream dissipate? So, yeah.
Definitely. I'd love to know from you, because you, like, the way that you are, you're always moving things forwards. I'd love to know, do you have any like practices or anything that you do, or any non-negotiables that keep you going as your epic self? Like, is there anything that Amber Sears does that just makes sure that every day she's showing up, her head's clear, her intuition's on fire? What are your practices that make you on the daily?
Wow, it's a lot of self-care. And this is actually something I've had to learn the hard way, because I initially, though I was, into peak performance and all that in my dance career, I really struggled with balance, and always have, and only in this last, I'd say 6 years since moving to Costa Rica did I actually start to feel some balance in my life, meaning work-life balance. So I was a type A workaholic perfectionist who worked around the clock, 24/7, was willing to put in the hours. I was a workhorse, totally. And so my challenge has been self-care, has been balance. How can I take a step back, really set firm boundaries for myself around my time, space, and energy. And what that looks like is not what maybe some people would expect, but it's actually taking on less work, taking on less projects. It's having dedicated an hour or two per day of self-care, physical movement, meaning like going to lift weights, going to a Zumba class, like whatever type of movement I'm doing that day. Meditation twice a day, at least for 10 to 20 minutes. That's like, oh, wow, I don't know who I'd be without meditation. Journaling is really powerful for me, gratitude journaling. Really just, I've had to learn these certain task systems for myself in terms of not giving myself so many to-dos, because I'm, again, a workhorse. So my tendency is to give myself 100 to-dos and try to get them all done in a day. And so instead what I do is give myself a very short list of the top priorities of the things that are going to move the needle forward the fastest for me. Yeah. Kind of that 80-20 principle, right?
Yeah.
So how can I do less work and have more impact with that work, right? So a lot of rewiring of my systems and how I work with my team and how I delegate, because again, I'm that person who, if someone's not doing their job right, I'll just take on the work. So I really had to learn delegation, automation, for my own work-life balance and sanity. And then, being in nature every day is a really important aspect of my life. Reconnection to nature on a daily basis, especially now that I'm back in the U.S. more full time. I'm not in the jungle where it's just you're living in the jungle. There's really no way to escape it. Here in the U.S., you really have to make an effort to go out into nature. And so, and especially here in Texas, it's been like so hot this summer that I actually spent more time indoors this summer than I think I have in like ever, ever during a summer, just because it's so hot. And so with that, it's making sure that I get that nature time in, because that really grounds me. It really centers me. And luckily here in Austin, we have this really great place called Barton Springs. It's like a public,
I think I've been paddleboarding in there.
Oh, you have? Okay, cool. So yeah, it's beautiful. And the whole city goes there to cool off and, get refreshed. And so jumping in cold water is also something I've really grown to love as like a really instant reset to my system and kind of wake up, throughout the day if I'm feeling low energy because I've been on my computer too much or I've been on my phone and needing that state change, I'll go jump in cold water. And so we have a pool and we do that often. JP and I do that. So yeah, those are my things.
Amazing. On that note, actually, with obviously a lot of people won't, hopefully they're aware, but JP is your husband. How is living with him? Because he's the one of the funniest people I actually follow online.
He is, him and I have what's interesting is that him and I have very different humor. So when I first met JP, I remember watching JP's videos before I met him. I seen like 2 of his videos. And I really thought the 2 videos I saw, one was about vegans, which I'm a vegan, have been for 10 years.
That's what I was thinking.
And then one was about Instagram yogis, which, by the way, that was me too. Like, I was the one on the waterfall rock face doing a dancer pose. Like, that is me, and I do that on social media. And so I watched these 2 videos, and I'm like, this guy's either a total asshole or he's super nice. And so I didn't know, because his character is really sarcastic, and I'm thinking, if this is how he is in real life, like, this guy's not going to be fun to hang out with. And but we met at this retreat where we were both facilitating these workshops, and instantly was like, oh, he's got such a huge heart, he's so sweet, he's so compassionate, he's so respectful. Like, I just fell in love with who he was really, really quickly. But no, our humors are actually quite different. So I think I'm like the stone that he sharpens his sword on in terms of comedy, because he'll share things with me and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of funny, and whereas other people are just dying on the floor laughing, So we just have different styles, and JP always says it's like there's certain languages of humor, and so like his is parody and sarcasm and all of that, and part of me tends to think sarcasm can be kind of negative and critical and judgmental. So I have this kind of thing with it sometimes where I'm like, I don't know, that's not really funny. But with that being said, it's been so fun to build our life together. This has been together for about 2.5 years now, and we both run our own businesses. We have very independent lives. Like, we were the types that didn't want to get married or have kids. That was our plan moving forward, like for the rest of our lives. And when we met, everything changed. It was like this light switch went on where we realized, oh, this is why nothing else worked out. with other relationships, or why I never wanted to settle down with anyone else, because it was supposed to be with you. So it was a really, really strong connection we have. And I would call it like soul recognition is what we experienced, where we were like, oh, I remember you. Like you're the person I'm supposed to be here with. So it was really, really special. And but it's been challenging too. You know, weaving our businesses and our lives together has been very challenging. I was in Costa Rica working, you know, with shamans in the jungle, and JP's on a book tour traveling around the US. So we've had to find ways to weave our lives together. And it's been really a wild journey to do that, but it's been really fun and rewarding. So very grateful for everything that we're doing.
I love it. It's absolute relationship goals. Honestly, I've been looking in for I think it's past 3 years, and it's just amazing to see where it is today. So it's awesome. I'd love to know, with you two, do you both collaborate? And because obviously JP uses comedy, and I think this is absolute, I'm going to swear, it's fucking genius. I think he uses comedy to bring people through into the realm which we're speaking about. Do you guys on the back end do work together, helping people together? You know, we don't. Which is, I mean, we do some videos together, right? Which is fun. I really love. Yeah, I always see you on there and wonder, how are you not crying with laughter? Everyone asks me that, and I'm like, no, I didn't laugh the whole time we were shooting it. Just again, I think our humors are different. But on the finished product, yeah, it's great. It's fun. But with that being said, so I would love more than anything to do things together that are more like, okay, we're going to do a retreat together. We're going to do workshops together. We're going to do online courses together, right? And JP's career is on a rocket ship to Mars right now. It's so, his work is just exploding. And so for him to really, where his core genius is when he can sit down and write out his scripts and perform those videos and be on stage performing his comedy. That's his core genius, and everything else is taken care of by his team. So his whole, if I was to invite him to be, you know, let's co-facilitate a retreat, that's like a back step for him, because he was doing that, you know, for years, 15 years before I met him. And for him, that was what he was doing, but it's not helping. It's not where he's going. So he's really on this creative path of being that visionary creator versus being the facilitator and the coach. So when I met JP, he was wrapping up his coaching business, which he had been doing for 15 years. He was an emotional healing coach and a Czech practitioner, and was doing a lot of different like one-on-one healing work with people, and also leading workshops and retreats around the world. Very similar work to what I was doing, but just different techniques, right? And so he decided around the time I met him, he was going to close his client practice, because his videos and his writing and his comedy was blowing up so much that was the next level for him. And that he really had to shed that identity as a coach. But he could do his coaching work through his comedy, right? And that's the genius aspect, is how he's able to weave all of that emotional healing work that he's done for so many years, in the awakening work, the personal development work, into the comedy. Exactly. And that way he's able to make even more impact, right? Instead of working with one person one-on-one, now he's reaching millions. And really that's what both of us are about, is impact. So how can we make the most impact on the most people in this life? How are we going to go about doing that, you know? And I think that there's a way that we can do it together in the videos, for example. But, and he'll come with me to my retreats. So like my retreat I just had in Peru, he came with me and stayed with me for the week, which was so special to get to share that with him. Oh, incredible. But for him to be a facilitator in that, I've asked him before in the past, and he's like he's just not called to it. And I really respect that, because you really have to know where you want to put your time, space, and energy. You really have to know, is this worth my effort to be, you know, in the grind of that production again? Because he's not really into the details of production. Like for him, his heart doesn't light up when he thinks about producing retreats. For me, it's the total opposite. I'm like, that is my jam. I love retreats. I love producing transformative experiences. So I'm all in. That's where my heart lights up. So his heart lights up on stage. And is his communication. Yeah. Exactly. That's incredible. I'd love to know from this. I think this is quite a powerful topic, which we can kind of really just infuse this whole interview up together. Finding purpose essentially is a way of finding your genius, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can totally wrap this up. You've had to do that. JP's clearly done that. What would you say, like, is there anything you can say, or any tips, advice? We had Michael Zeller on this, the episode before, speaking about finding your genius. I'd love to know from you, how did you find yours, or do you have any tools, tips, given the coaching world that you're in now, how do you help people find their thing?
It really gets back to what I was sharing earlier, which is following what excites you. So what can you not wait to do every single day? For me, that was dance initially. I just wanted to dance all day. That was my highest bliss. My highest bliss was dancing every day because that's what made me the most fulfilled, the most fully activated, fully expressed in all the ways. And that shifted over the years, right, into service. How can I be of service to other people? Something I really love to ask people is what is the most fulfilling thing that you've done in your life? What were you doing at that moment? What were you serving? Were you serving something greater than yourself? I think purpose has a lot to do with serving something greater than yourself. Yeah. It has a lot to do with how you're going to make impact on the world rather than a selfish reason why you might want to do something like, oh, it'd be cool to go to the Great Barrier Reef because that's a cool thing to do and that would be really fun. It's like, yeah, cool. And what's deeper than that? How can you be of service in that situation? What can you give back? How can you help, right? And so really asking yourself those questions. What excites me the most? How can I be of service to something greater than myself? And where does that meet the marketplace? Solving people's problems. So when I'm working with entrepreneurs, it's looking at those three things and saying, okay, so where do all those things align? Where you're helping someone solve a problem who really needs your help. You're serving something far greater than yourself, which is other people, humanity at large, the environment, whatever you want to, focus on. And then something that really lights your heart up because it's got to be exciting to you. Otherwise, It's going to be really hard. You got to love it or it's going to be really hard. And you're going to end up in that 9-to-5 grind again because you're not doing something that's fulfilling to you. And money can only take you so far. You can be super successful in business and make lots of money and be super empty inside. So I think you got to start with what gets your soul lit up. Right. And when you can do that and then you align it with how that works in the marketplace, you can't help but win because not only are you going to help other people and serve something greater, but you're going to actually feel super deeply fulfilled in what you're doing every single day. And everybody deserves to feel that. And everybody has that ability to feel that. It's just being willing to experiment enough to find that thing, I think.
I was going to say, I love the whole fulfillment is just service, isn't it? And
yeah,
the majority of the time, I can't remember. I was listening. I was just speaking to someone the other day, and we were on about this, and they're on about as soon as fulfillment becomes something, it's more of a case of just going out there and just simply helping someone. If you're not feeling fulfilled in your life, when was the last time you actually just did something for someone else by yourself? I was like, holy shit, that's so true.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. I love that.
I'd love to know, Amber, with this whole chat being around purpose, becoming your most epic self, living an epic life, what's your purpose? Because you're clearly on a rocket ship as well. What's your purpose?
Yeah, my purpose is to really awaken humanity in the broadest sense of the term. It's really to help shift the vibration on the planet. And I do that in a lot of ways with all the different tools I've collected over the years and with the experiences I create. But really, it's to help people heal and awaken and transform and really embody their highest self. And that takes a lot of work, right? But it's so worth it once you really start to ride in on that pathway where you're really aligning with your soul. You're really living from your heart and your soul, man. That's when I feel, and I've seen in my work, when people radically shift, and that ripples out into all of humanity, into the collective, and that's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to make massive shifts in this lifetime. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to make as much impact as possible, and I know it begins in our hearts. It begins by healing our hearts, reconnecting to self, reconnecting to nature, reconnecting to each other, so that we can be better for each other and the world at large. Yeah, definitely.
Sounds like I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with you on that one.
Awesome. Fellow light worker, we're here for a reason.
Exactly. And then, right, so we pretty much wrap up these conversations with 3 core questions. I really can't wait to hear what yours come out as. But cool. Number 1, if I'm to give you a device, and on this device we can speak a message, or you can speak a message more to the point, to pretty much every single person in the world at whatever moment in their life that they're at, and you can share one message which can really help those people move forwards, what would be the one message that you could speak, or you would speak, if everyone could receive it?
I would say follow your heart, because that's going to be the guiding light in literally this endless sea of possibility of life, right? We live in this cosmic, unbelievable universe where we have the potential and the capacity to be whatever we want to be, or to really limitless in our capacity. And it can be really overwhelming because there's so many choices and we've got so much accessible to us. So I find that when you can really tune into your heart and your intuition, that let that be the guiding light in everything you do, and be willing to get quiet enough to listen to that, because the mind is really chatty. And we get really distracted by the mind and the mental dialogue and the chatter and the distractions, right? And we lose sight of that deep connection to self. And that's where all the gold is. That's where all the answers are. So we seek externally all these answers, but in actuality, it's all right inside of us. So have the willingness to sit quietly and be with yourself and listen to your heart, because all the answers are there. It's not external. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Then the next one would be, Amber, if I could send you back in time, or you could think back to a moment in time where you could see the youngest version of yourself at its happiest moment, and you could see little Amber, and you could walk back into that picture with everything that you know now, with all the mentorship that you've had, all the lessons that you've learned, and you can walk over to little Amber, get down on one knee, grab her by the hands, look her in the eye, and give her one piece of life advice which would help her through the future. What would you speak?
Oh, so much good wisdom I could share. Okay, I would probably say, trust yourself, and don't listen to all the naysayers of the universe who pop up into your field. Trust yourself in every single situation, and show up like you were meant to be there, because it's all divinely orchestrated and it's all a gift. So enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. I'd say, like, enjoying the journey is probably the bigger lesson I've learned in my life, is how do I enjoy the journey of becoming, because we're constantly evolving and transitioning and shifting and up leveling, but it's about enjoying that process and trusting the process. So yeah.
I fully agree with you on that. I think as soon as enjoyment or excitement or fun becomes diminished, you're very quick to disconnect and push it away.
1,000%, yes.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And then last but not least, Amber, what does it mean to you to be able to live a nourished life?
It means to wake up every day so deeply fulfilled, so excited for what I'm creating, so connected to self, so connected to other people around me, the people I love, having deep, deep connections and love with the people around me. It means playing in nature, being a kid again, and really letting myself be a kid again. It means adventure and exploration and discovery and jumping into the unknown and just exploring all that life has to offer. That's really, and being so grateful for that gift.
Love it.
Yeah.
Amber, look, I've loved having you on the show. I genuinely, this will not be the first or the last. I'd love to just acknowledge it. I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. The amount of people that you're helping, what you've done in your own life is incredible, and you speak from a place of story and wisdom. I absolutely love it. But I just want to say a big thank you for coming on the show. And Amber, where can everyone find you? Where can people find what you do? How can people get involved with you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, Simon. This has been so fun, and I think you and I could talk for days. So, where you guys can find me, my website is epicself.com. Really simple. And Epic Self is my handle on Instagram, and also you can find me on Facebook at Amber Sears. But I love to chat in the DMs on Instagram, or email to wherever you want to find me. But Instagram tends to be my favorite platform. So you can find me there. We can chat, and I look forward to connecting with each and every one of you, because this is we're all here doing very similar work for, I think, a bigger reason. So please connect and reach out. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Amber, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Simon.